So we are live with Greg Foss and Nicholas Alexander Kradza. Why is this just?
I was skiing out in Whistler, and my buddy that I ski with, he's an old Montrealer, and both of us were huffing and puffing, and we're like, this is embarrassing because we are pretty, young. We were pretty young. We used to be pretty good when we were young, and we're skiing with an Olympic skier, this guy Justin Dory. Have you heard of him?
No.
Actually, I wanted you to do this. Put this on. Are you good enough to put this on right now for your call? Look up Justin Dory crashes.
Okay, give me a second. I got it set up. I'll get it.
So this guy's a Bitcoiner, and his wife and him were in the Sochi Olympics, and they've both won gold medals in ski cross competition. Okay, so pull this guy up. You'll see on Instagram, Justin Dory crashes, Dorey. Okay.
Justin Dory crashes.
Have you see it there?
Not yet. Hold on, and then I'll put it up. Is it all one word?
Oh, Justin Dory. No, it's just like, Justin is first name and then space Dory, Dorey, and then space crashes. And it should be an Instagram post or YouTube. It's on YouTube. Now, just watch this thing, you guys.
Hold on.
So this is who I'm skiing with in
ski
Whistler.
cross. That's when they're all going down.
No. Actually, so I said it wrong. He's in the half pipe and he's on two skis.
Oh, got it.
In a half pipe. Okay. Now just watch this.
Okay, hold on. I think I got it. Justin Dory. Oh, there's a couple videos. Hold on.
But this one is. Yeah, so it's the top one. Play the top one. Play the top one.
And we had something almost horrific happening.
Almost horrific is right.
By Justin Dory just a moment ago.
Watch this.
Yeah, coming in on the switch, double flat spin, Justin catching.
Oh.
Now watch it in slow motion though. It's disgusting.
He hit his
Just watch. Watch this in slow motion. He looks like a rag doll.
So if you're just listening,
just watch. Oh, that you can't see this on the tape?
No, if they're in their car.
In the car. Okay. But just watch. Look at this. Now watch when he hits the edge, fellas.
Yeah. Oh, geez.
Oh, God. Is that sick or what? Okay, so I'm skiing with him in Whistler. This guy
for anyone listening, just to give them context, that he hit the half of the top of the half pipe right about hip level, and then his back just bent sideways like a rag doll, and his head smashed off the side. And he's
after doing a double flip, right? So he does a double flip, and he doesn't land. Anyway, we're skiing with this guy in Whistler. Now, this guy is hot.
I'm hoping you're doing some tricks.
Not even close. But here's the thing. I mean, we're following him, but it's like the guy is just outrageous. And both my buddy and me go like... this is embarrassing, right? But he's like half our age, first of all, and he's a better skier than we've ever been in our lives. But we're like, you know what? We just drink too much. Yeah, that's the problem. Otherwise, we'd be really good. So
you stopped drinking.
So that's it. Both of us went cold turkey, and we're now. I'm 12 days in.
But what are we? We're in May. Are you going to be skiing again this year?
No, but I just want to prove to myself I can do it, because I don't think I've gone a full week without drinking in probably 25 years.
Yeah, got it.
So now I'm going to try and do 60 full days, and I'm 12 days into it. We'll see how I get.
Yeah, got it. I think I did 5 months after my first concussion. I had to after a concussion.
Right.
I just had to. And after 5 months, you feel pretty good.
I'm not sure why you'd go back.
I do 3 or 4 weeks after every summer, because after every summer I have to convince myself that I'm not dependent on it.
I know.
I spend so many times on patios enjoying a couple of glasses of wine.
Socially, even if
as long as it's only a couple of glasses of wine. It's when you're into like you've had a bottle of wine and you're just like, I just need one more nightcap or whatever. Like,
I've learned that last drink that I used to want is always the one that makes me feel like complete crap the next day. So I for the most part, that's been cut out of my life almost entirely. But there have been times when I get together with, like there's a couple people in the office or something, we're out, and somehow I get lured into something I don't want to be doing, and that doesn't end well. But
that's okay. I mean, as long as you. So I was paddleboarding at 6 a.m. this morning as the sun came up.
No way.
Yeah. So it's just like, you know what?
Right on Lake Ontario.
Yeah.
Are you the only one out there?
At that time, pretty well.
But you got a wetsuit on it.
No.
What?
That's totally fine.
What's the temperature of the water?
As long as you don't fall in, you don't care. I do it all year round, and I never wear more than booties.
Come on.
No. It's as long as you don't fall in. So just don't fall in. Everything's cool.
Wow.
So I was there. But the point
my friend Dennis lives on your street now. I got to make the introduction.
Oh yeah. I've met him already.
Have you?
Yeah,
okay.
Good man. Yeah.
Okay.
Good guy. Nice house that he built.
Yeah.
So the point is, when you're hung over, getting up at 6 a.m. to go paddling on the lake is not usually the first thing on your mind. But then, when you're not, everything's cool, right? So anyway,
I can't believe you do that on Lake Ontario. Is anyone else?
As long as there's no waves, right? So, when the lake is nice and glassy smooth, the lake turns into an ocean when the wind blows from the east, which means there's a storm. There's like 8-foot waves that are breaking. My kids surf on Lake Ontario. So you don't go out there then, but when it's calm, you don't fall in.
Yeah. Wow. Foss, surprising me yet again. So what... I want to talk to you about JP Morgan in a second, regional banks. Actually, let's start there. So what's we're recording this. This is Wednesday. This is probably going to go out Friday in a couple days.
Okay.
So what are you seeing with the regional banks, and where is JP Morgan in the year 2030?
Okay, let's start with what I see with the regional banks. I tweeted out this morning, this may or may not be what you saw, and this is thanks to a really cool report that I subscribe to called the Bear Traps Report. This guy who publishes it, Larry, I'm forgetting his second name. But he's under the Twitter symbol @ConvertBond, and he used to work at Lehman Brothers during the collapse. Okay, so he's seen the inner workings of finance of Wall Street in the event of a collapse. Okay, Larry McDonald. Okay, so Larry McDonald, and he doesn't like Bitcoin, which is cool. Look, I'm telling him he's wrong, and he says, "Hey, Foss, buddy, no, you're wrong," and I get along. Anyway, not lead lag report.
Bear
Traps Report. Excellent daily publication. It's not cheap. He put out information today. He goes, the regional banks have lost 80% of their market cap down to $100 billion, which means they've lost $400 billion. Imagine if that money was properly invested in Bitcoin, as I say, at the top of the market, obviously. But people that have been selling regional banks include Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger. Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger sold 42 million shares of U.S. Bank Corp, which is a super regional. It's the 5th largest bank in the USA, and they are saying they sold because they're concerned about commercial real estate. Commercial real estate, 50% of all commercial real estate loans are held by the regional banks in the USA. So Bear Traps Report tweets out, the regional banks, publicly traded regional banks, have lost 80% of their market cap down to $100 billion of combined market cap. JP Morgan will make $80 billion of net interest margin this year, which means in 1.5 years, JP Morgan makes enough to buy all the regional banks by market cap. Okay, which is crazy, which gives you an idea of the difference, in relative size. And what does it mean? It means a couple of things. First of all, the regional banks are in trouble. Don't listen to me. Listen to Charlie Munger, who says the same thing. Listen to Dallas Fed Governor, or former Dallas Fed Governor Kaplan, Robert Kaplan.
I missed what he said.
We're in the first couple of innings of this of the regional banking crisis. So I believe that's where we are. Where will JP Morgan be in 2030? So
this is slightly an acceleration point on just the financial mess.
It's not just acceleration. It's these things don't cleanse themselves quickly. Okay. Everyone thinks it's over, including the idiot Jim Cramer, who says, I think First Republic Bank will mark the bottom of the regional banking crisis. And that's what people hope, but that's not the way you cleanse a system that's over-levered, which is the situation always, not just now, with commercial banking historically. It's just an over-levered business. It's far more risky than people understand. As Henry Ford said over 100 years ago, if the average American understood how commercial banking worked, there'd be a revolution in the morning. So that hasn't changed. So the commercial banks are in trouble. JP Morgan is given sweetheart deals to rescue some of them. They didn't buy First Republic. They didn't rescue First Republic. They rescued... who did JP Morgan rescue?
Was it Silvergate?
No.
Silicon Valley Bank.
No. Who did JP Morgan just go in and rescue?
Yeah, you're right. I am sleepy today.
Was it First Republic?
I forget.
Too many of these names bouncing around in my head. But they it must have been
it was First Republic.
Yeah, it must have been.
They bought most of the assets of First Republic.
Okay, but they didn't buy them. They were given them with a backstop. Okay, so the Fed, the FDIC basically backstopped the purchase. So they bought the assets for negative book value with a backstop by the Fed. The point is this: First Republic Bank even at a market cap, of $1 billion, was overvalued by about 10 to $20 billion to the true value of the bank. When it finally traded by a regulatory forced merger, JP Morgan bought it for the equivalent of negative $10 billion. Meaning the FDIC gave them $10 billion to backstop their purchase. So understand how that works, people.
And it kind of makes perfect sense to me, though, because the regional Federal Reserve banks around the U.S. that are just placeholders, like they don't have a lot of authority, like St. Louis, the San Francisco, all the different ones. My understanding from researching this years ago was that those are all privately owned by JP Morgan and some of the other banks. So the Federal Reserve in Washington is not, but the regional ones are. So if they're slightly, I don't know the percentage, but if they're owned by the biggest banks, then this to me is natural that the regional, the Federal Reserve system would then just go in and say, okay, there's a bank problem. JP Morgan, you get it quote unquote for free or with some backstops because the system is.
I'm not, so that's an area that I'm not, it makes sense to me. I
wish I knew more.
I don't even care.
Yeah.
I don't even care. Like, I mean, it wouldn't surprise me, but why overthink things? I mean, it's there, whether it's actually them orchestrating it or not. It's the only out. Here's the truth. The U.S. banking system is far too decentralized. And now, understand, I'm a huge decentralization fan, but banks are fucked, okay? And I can't say it another way. What they actually need are some grown-ups in the room, like JP Morgan, to properly manage their risks. First Republic Bank brought this on themselves by poor risk management. They should have gone out of business. The executives that sold stock should have to repay that stock, in my opinion, but let's leave that alone. But centralization in banking actually makes sense. Look at the Canadian banking system. We have 8 banks, essentially coast-to-coast banks. Well, if the rule of 10 applied, the rule of 10 being the USA is 10 times larger than Canada in population, in GDP, in lots of different things. Well, that would mean that the Canadian banking system the US banking system should have 80 banks, right? 10 times 8. Or the flip side is this. The USA currently has 4,000 banks. Well, then Canada should have 400. Which system works better? There's no question the Canadian system works better, okay? Doesn't mean the Canadian banks are risk-free, but in terms of properly managing risk, having the tools to hedge the risks that all banks are exposed to, centralizing control and reducing overhead, meaning one loan officer at JP Morgan can take on the loan book of the loan officer at First Republic Bank, and the loan officer at First Republic Bank is out of a job, which makes it more efficient. And the centralized control of risk makes it better managed rather than spreading that risk to a bunch of banks that don't know how to manage risk. Now, look, again, I am not a fan of banking, and I'm certainly not a fan of centralization in general. But in this case, centralization of the biggest banks makes sense.
So if you were put in charge of the U.S. banks or the Canadian banks right now, you pick what's the moves to continue the centralization of it? To try.
It's the efficient outcome, even though it's over for them. Okay, look, I hate to say it. Like bank, you guys are done. It's over. Okay, why? Because the world's becoming more risky. You're undercapitalized. Eventually, you're all going to need to be bailed out. And guess who will own the banks? The government. And guess how the government will pay for it? By printing money.
So JP Morgan, the year 2030.
No idea. Look, at this point, again, just follow this trend. When I graduated from school in the U.S. in 1988, there were 15,000 banks in the U.S. in 1988.
Were there?
Yeah. Now there's under 5,000. So in the last 30 years, 10,000 banks have either merged or failed. And that trend will continue. Some people say there'll only be 400 banks in the USA. I think that is probably very predictable. I actually will go further, and I'll say there'll be less than 100. Why? Take the Canadian banking system, multiply it by 10, and you get what should exist in the United States.
Doesn't the Canadian banking system, though, if you're looking at it just in its by itself, the structure of it, I feel like it limits creativity. It limits innovation. You know, like when I look at the way our stuff is structured, and I just look at the technology platforms that we have access to as Canadians here because of the banking system, because of all the regulations that keep them on top, they don't have to do anything. And a lot of the stuff that we have to use through our bank, it's pure shit.
Okay.
Like it's comical, some of the stuff that we have to use. And I guess that's
you're referring to some of the systems in here we have to use to
Well, look. Here's
and that's my frustration point. And on the consumer side, the web banking's finally gotten a little bit. I mean, 10 years.
The web banking's now
half decent,
pretty good.
But compared to some of the financial products through some of the firms that they have available in the U.S., even through like Chase, like through their credit card systems and stuff like that, where they can create multiple kind of multiple virtual credit cards for recurring payments and stuff. We don't get access to any of that stuff, and a lot of it's good. It's good.
Well, it seems good, innovation. But it's probably very risky. Okay, so look, there's 3 major risks in any bank. Okay, there's credit risk, which is the risk when you make loans that the borrower doesn't pay you back. There's interest rate risk when you mismatch your assets and liabilities, which is essentially what brought down the First Republic Bank. They mismatched their assets and liabilities. And then there's operating risk, okay? And operating risk includes things like the systems breaking down. So they design all these things, and these things can break down from an operating perspective, and then it can also expose you to risks that otherwise you wouldn't be exposed to, right? Things happen more quickly. Listen to this, though. One of the biggest risks that face the Canadian banking system, and this is because I used to work at TD, and I'm still in touch with some of the higher echelon at TD. This is a guy that doesn't work there anymore. I'll just dox his first name, is Patrick. Okay? Patrick, who is one of the highest ranking officers at TD, says, you know what our biggest risk was? COBOL. When the engineers that actually still know COBOL die, we're done. Because the system is held together by COBOL.
I used to work on those systems when I was at RBC on Front
And
Street.
maybe you're going to turn around and be one of the guys that can rescue that system, but it's held together by...
They don't want me in there.
Okay, but but you guys get it.
I get it.
Like, it's just a
JCL,
huge
job control language submitted to COBOL to run these programs.
I think that's my point. That's what I'm coming from.
Okay, it's the same thing. It's got to be the same thing in the United States, but this is one of the risks of the banking system that nobody
technology is ancient. It was ancient,
and it's in the basement of 315 Front Street. Or,
you don't know this. One of our cousins at the year 2000 stuff, he knew COBOL so well. He started traveling around the world for top dollar because banks around the world were using COBOL. Yeah. He just named his price.
Okay.
I don't know if he's still into it. We should actually reach out to him because he's going to be able to name his price again.
Well, he'll die, but he's going to die. Yeah. Unfortunately, I hate to say it. Like,
he's older than us.
Okay, so like, here's the risks. Okay, guys, let's not call Armageddon, but the reality is banking. Let's bring it back to the base layer. Banking is extremely risky.
What are some of the other conversations that you're having with people that you don't have to dox anybody, but are just catching your attention right now, either in the banking sector, in the Bitcoin world, skiing, anywhere? What conversations you're having? Some conversations somewhere that
all the
people
time.
Don't know. Yeah. What are some that are really interesting to you or that stand out that you want to talk about right now? I haven't prepared you for this, so I apologize.
It's all good. No, this isn't. So one of the things that you find, and I mostly get this from guys like Jeff Booth, who he's way more professional than I am. People feel way more comfortable reaching out to him than they do to me, which is cool because I actually don't want to talk to too many people. But at the end of the day,
you both serve a purpose, though. You both are necessary.
Yeah. So Jeff will tell me, and then and he'll introduce me to people, and I'm like, holy God, yeah, this guy's a Bitcoiner. Like, and you can't dox them.
Yeah,
but the reality is, when you meet them, you're like, this is awesome. I just wish you would come public,
Oh, wow.
And so and look, I'm not trying to say I see all these things. It's just, how about we keep it at that level where you say, you'd be surprised some of the people that are Bitcoiners that can't say that they're Bitcoiners because it would look far too conflicted within their regular.
I don't know if you saw last night, Jeff Booth and Balaji went back and forth on Twitter. Huge threads, long threads like this. They're going to do a podcast together apparently to kind of work through some of the.
All right.
There were differences, they weren't.
Look, I love what Balaji did. Look, the reality is I would have taken the bet, meaning even though I wanted him to be right, I would have bet on $1 million because that's good risk management. Okay. But it doesn't mean that he was wrong in laying out. I just felt the odds were in my favor that it wouldn't be achieved. But I couldn't say with 100% certainty it wouldn't be achieved, because if the regional banking system truly melted down like he was predicting, maybe Bitcoin would have gone to $1 million. But you got to be careful what you wish for. And like, and by the way, for him to bet $1 million is sort of like you and me betting like a couple of hundo, right? Like not even $1,000, a couple of $100. You know what I mean? Like it's just, it's like
he can handle it.
I'm pretty sure he finds it in his seat cushions at his house if he had to, right? So like he tried to make the point rather than win the bet. And I sort of like his style, all right? Because that's what opens eyes. It opens people's eyes. And you get these guys running around, he's an idiot. People, you missed the point.
Yeah.
The amount of engagement and the amount of eye-opening commentary it brought to the space was beautiful. And I hope Jeff Booth was defending that. And look, Jeff and I don't always agree on everything, although I would hate to not agree with Jeff because I'll turn out to be wrong. But at the end of the day, like, you know, you can't always agree with everybody. Right?
I find myself always going back to the premise of his book because it just answers so much, the way he described what's happening. I got a question for you. In your career, you know, trading or, you know, dealing with credit, what made a successful person in that career? So you were in it for a long time. I'm sure you saw people come and go. What were the personality traits of someone who could survive on a floor? I don't know if you were on a trading floor.
Sure.
Where you were.
No, I wasn't a trading
What are the personality traits of that type of person?
So I've tried to describe it. First of all, and this is my dig at Peter Schiff all the time, is like when the information changes, change your investment position. Okay. Peter Schiff never changed his investment position on Bitcoin. He was introduced to it when it was $10. If he had put 1% of his gold portfolio in Bitcoin as a hedge, that 1% position would be up 300 times from where it is currently. Okay. Meaning, sorry, that's only $3,000. It would be up 30,000. It would be up 3,000 times. So that 1% would have turned into a 30-fold return on his portfolio. Okay, can you guys understand
don't even
that?
Get me thinking about that.
He's got a horrible performance because his fees are so egregious. If he had just put 1% of his portfolio in Bitcoin and not touched it, that entire portfolio would be up 30-fold.
Did you find yourself in your career?
Okay, so can I describe? Okay, so he didn't change his thesis. He's a knucklehead. Okay, you don't change your thesis, they wheel you out. So what have I seen on a trading floor? I've actually seen a guy get wheeled out physically on a gurney because he had a heart attack on the trading floor. Okay, I've also seen fistfights. Because one guy on the same trading floor,
I believe it.
One guy is within the institution. They're matched because one guy is long something and one guy short something. So for the institution, it nets out.
I shouldn't laugh, but that's hilarious.
No. But this is it's like the jungle, right? Okay, so so here's my compliment. So by the way, we met a very sweet young lady that works with you guys, Sonia. Not going to dox her because I don't even know her last name. But look, what makes a really good trader? I hate to say it, women. Because men are too headstrong. And women sometimes, I'm not saying there's not headstrong women, but the best traders I ever met on Wall Street, women, hands down. Because they go with the flow, okay? They realize that it's the chair that makes money, not the person, okay? So there's an old expression, show me the flow, I'll make you some dough. Meaning, if you know an account that's a massive account, and they've given you a sell order, and all of these little minnow buyers come in, guess where the price is going? Still going down, even though you attract all these minnows. Look, sold to you. Holy shit, it's a whale, okay? And all you idiot minnows, and then what do the idiot minnows turn into? Oh my God, there's a whale out there. Okay, sell. So then it starts to accelerate. So then the JP, I'm going to say the JP Morgan trader, but the
kind of reminds me of the regional banks.
Well, no. But so the best lady trader I ever knew was at JP Morgan. Okay, so we'll leave it there, and she would just play the market like a fiddle, and everyone's like, "Oh, she's so nice. She's a lady, and she's so nice." And that she's just ripping your face off, okay, and ripping your heart out. And so, look, that's fine, you know.
And then now going forward over the next 10, 15 years, what do you think you're trying to share with your kids? Not that you're talking about it, or younger generation of the skills they would need to survive through this next period of, I don't know if it's finance or life.
Well, let's take Jeff Booth, okay? So there's going to be 100 years of change in the next 10 years. 100 years worth of change in the next 10 years. Do you think I have any clue what the world's going to look like in 10 years? If you think you do, you're wrong. Yes. Like, open your mind to the fact that you just can play probabilities. You have to. So here's a good one, okay? I predict that plumbers are going to make 10 times the money of investment bankers in 15 years. Okay? Because investment bankers will be, or how about investment research analysts or lawyers, okay? Because lawyers will be replaced by Chat GPT-4 or whatever you call that thing. And plumbers, you still need someone to fix your house, and you need someone that works with their hands that's smart. And it's difference of physical labor versus something that can be recreated digitally or whatever.
You still need someone to clear the shit out of the toilet.
Okay, so that's fine. So look, everyone wants to work on Wall Street. Fuck you, you stupid Ivy League cucks, okay? And I can say that because I went to an Ivy League school. You're wasting your money, all right? You will become redundant, and the people that will succeed will be the craftsmen and the tradesmen.
Yeah.
Women, tradesmen and tradeswomen.
Yeah, our team here is using Chat GPT and some of the visual stuff. And I know people at universities that I don't want to name any names, but are writing essays with it and getting like 80%.
Well, they have 80%, but then they have a checker, right, as to whether you've used Chat GPT.
Yeah, but I think they've already adapted to know how to
look. They're one step ahead of the professors, as they always are. And you're paying a lot of money for this education. I think you're doing it wrong.
Yeah.
But going to school is a riot. It's a riot because what do? You go, you have fun, you meet people. That's the most important thing, is the interaction.
Yeah, I think that, and I try to tell everyone, I think the education coming out of there is not really the information itself. It's the ability to research. It's the ability to think critically, time management, going out to the bars and having fun, but also handling the exam that 100%. You might have 2 days from now. So
100%.
There are some skills coming out of that. Who are people not following on Twitter that they should be following right now? You mentioned D++.
Yeah, D++. Well, she's just more of a programmer, but she's brilliant. Her tweet today that blew me away, she said, "There's no such thing as blockchain technology." Now let's decompose what that means. There's only one use of a blockchain. It's called Bitcoin. Any other blockchain technology that JP Morgan promotes can be done more efficiently with a centralized database, okay? Full stop.
Speaking to the I used to work at Oracle.
Okay,
I don't know
good,
if you know,
good.
like,
yes,
this
you told me so. Then just write that on your forehead and go around and just tell people this is what I bring to the party, okay? There's no such thing as blockchain technology. There's only one use of blockchain, and it's called Bitcoin. Anything else, you're being gaslit. Okay? Because you can do it more efficiently with a centralized database.
It drives me out. There was somebody sitting right where you're sitting in, coming from traditional finance in Toronto. They've done really well. They sold a finance company right before the big sell-off. They were sitting here, Nick, do you remember? And I was like, blockchain technology is a you can do with all these other altcoin stuff in a database better than what you're
because
doing
it's
now.
centralized.
He left here, sold everything right before the big dump off.
Okay.
So he was then going to go put it all in Bitcoin. I don't know if he ever did. I can't wait to meet him next.
Okay. D++. So yeah, shout out to her. But no, who are people like, do you know who Luke Broyles is now? This young kid?
I do. Yeah.
I met him. One thing I really like to do is try and meet people in person before I vouch for them. So I've met Luke Broyles. I love Jason Lowry. That brings me a little bit of hate mail. I'm fine with that, guys. You don't have to agree with me. I just think he's brilliant. I've read his book, 400 pages. It's brilliant, but it's not an easy read. So we're talking, that's the book that's
I know, I have it. Yeah. I'm about a third way through it. The premise of the book's
okay, so the guy is amazing, but most people are following him. Here's someone who you are going to follow. Okay, I'm predicting. A young kid who I've met that I'm going to meet down in Miami. I haven't met yet, but his mom reached out to me. He's 13 years old. And his Twitter handle is Gen Z, so Gen, capital Z, 4, and then the letters BTC. Gen Z 4 BTC. Okay? And he wants to orange pill Generation Z. Gen Z or Gen Z. I know his name. I won't dox him yet. I'm going to meet him in Miami. I'm going to introduce him to some of the big hitters. Jeff Booth, Natalie, get ready. This kid is going to orange pill Gen Z because he's sick of the education that his generation is getting by TikTok, where you get these influencers that, you know, are spewing all sorts of garbage, and he wants to change that. So his mom reached out to me. She lives in Florida. They're going to drive to Miami. I'm going to meet with him.
Awesome.
And I'm hoping somehow to integrate his vision into the Looking Glass education platform that I'm part of. Who knows? But I predict this kid is someone that you're going to be following more closely.
Looking Glass education, are you guys still adding content there?
Oh, it's crazy. So we got Mi Primera Bitcoin in El Salvador is absolutely exploding in popularity. So that's part of Looking Glass education. That's who I ski with out in Whistler too, is Seb Bunny, right? So when I go skiing, we sit around and we talk on the chairlifts. Literally, we talk about Looking Glass, and like he's running a great platform.
What's your latest thinking on El Salvador and their just the way they've handled?
Did you see what they did today?
No.
Or what Bukele tweeted around that Fitch upgraded them?
Oh no.
Yeah. Now Fitch is
smaller.
There's two big ones, Moody's and S&P, but Fitch matters. The point is the trend of credit upgrades, and Bukele is celebrating, as he should. Well done, Mr. President. You are changing the lives of people. And so I think that the momentum is just continuing. You know that James Lavish, Larry Lepard, myself, Mark Moss, Swan, or Corey Clipston, and David Foley, who is Larry's investment partner now, we're starting this thing called the Bitcoin Opportunities Fund. Well, one of the things that we would have taken a look at if we had been managing money a year ago would be buying El Salvador bonds. And they've done better than Bitcoin. Okay. So,
I know that.
Yeah, it's just different ways of earning returns in the Bitcoin ecosystem.
Is that fund operational now? Like we
just closed our first round, and we will start making investments this month.
Open to Canadians or no?
Open to anybody that is an accredited investor. Yeah.
You were down in El Salvador.
I went there.
What makes Greg Foss happy right now? Skiing?
I love skiing. I love surfing. I'm no good at surfing anymore. I need to stand up paddle surf. I'm too fat to get off the board and pop up like a cork. But I surfed in El Salvador, not very well. But I was out in the lineup with the guys. I love meeting the young kids. I actually ran into Francis Pouliot just on the beach in El Salvador. I swear to God. He's like, "Hey, Fosser." And I'm like, "Yeah, two Canadians hanging out on the beach in
That's
in
wild. We don't know him. I just know he's a Bull
man.
Bitcoin,
Great
the
guy.
founder of Bull Bitcoin.
Good man. Smart and sharp as a tack, right? So,
what's your take on? No, I just want to dig into that actually a little bit more before I ask you. Because you see everything going around the world, it can get a little overwhelming. I think sometimes you've been through a lot. What do you? It's the skiing that keeps you happy. I'm just trying to figure you out.
Because you guys have I've wrestled with some mental health issues because managing risk for 30 years is a pressure cooker. So I need to have release valves. It's always been exercise and I love nature. So skiing's cool. Surfing I'm no good at, but I've surfed all over the world. I've almost drowned in a couple of places, which don't get yourself into those situations. I mean, I just like being outside. I like talking with people. What I really like is meeting young kids that are going to change the world. And I think I'm doing that in the Bitcoin community. I say young kids. I mean, Jason Lowry, he's going to change the world, people, like it or not. All right. And yeah, he wears a military uniform, and that's because, I support the armed forces. Okay. Why? Because they actually most of the time defend freedom. And that's what I'm all about. So look, I call him a kid, even though I can, because I'm twice his age, but he's not young by kid standards, but he's still going to change the world. Luke Broyles, this kid who's Gen Z for BTC, he's only 13. Think about how much people have in front of them, especially if we understand that in the next 10 years, the next decade, we'll see 100 years worth of change. So I hope
my daughter's 17. All she really knows is to save in Bitcoin. Think she's 17,
that's pretty lucky.
She's over a year, I guess over 2 years. So since she was 15, all she knows is your savings go in Bitcoin.
Wow.
Trying to teach her stuff.
I have a pretty cool thing that we'll talk about. It's okay. I save in Bitcoin.
Okay. Are you good for? Do you have to take off?
No. I just was saying there was something. This headline that just came.
Oh, tell us about it.
Carl Icahn is being investigated for by federal prosecutors. If people don't know who Carl Icahn is, he's a famous investor in the USA, but.
Yeah, Carl Icahn's company stock tumbles after prosecution seeks what?
That's crazy. I mean, this is a little bit a short seller Hindenburg research earlier this month, but they're saying that he's inflating the value of his. Anyway, that's never good.
I can see what you've done for 30 years to manage stuff. When headline, can you imagine being in a position and a headline like that comes
You have to act immediately.
Well, it's too late to act when that.
Yeah,
headline,
it's over.
It's just like, okay, you better be positioned or
somebody get your lunch.
Yeah. I remember one time. Here's a funny trading story for you. It was right around Christmas time, and I was one of the largest traders of Rogers Communication debt. In the world, okay? Because Ted Rogers, you may or may not know this, was the largest high yield borrower, not just in Canada, but in the world. Okay, Ted Rogers was the largest high yield borrower in the world. He had $4 billion of debt outstanding, which doesn't sound like a lot in today's day and age, but at the time, it was the largest borrower in the world. And he built a world-class cable and wireless company on the back of the U.S., primarily the U.S. high yield lender. But I was working for TD Securities, and one of the things we were trying to do is change his borrowing to be Canadian dollar denominated. We wanted domestic lenders to Rogers Communications, which makes sense since all the Canadian guys owned the equity. Wouldn't you think they'd invest in the debt? I've told you this story, right? One of the guys wouldn't buy the debt because it was too risky. I'm like, dude, you own $900 million of the common stock and you think the debt is too risky? And basically the salesman had to hit the key and get me off the line because I was about to I did call the guy the most foolish investment manager I've ever met in my life because, you own a subordinate claim and you're telling me that the debt is too risky to buy at any price. But okay, going back to that, it's right around Christmas time. And the CEO of TD Securities brings in the Salvation Army band to play Christmas carols on the trading floor, okay? And my desk happened to be very close to where the Salvation Army band set up, but I didn't know they were the Salvation Army band. Okay?
Oh, shit.
So then,
what did you
just listen? That afternoon. It was a Friday afternoon. Some rating agency downgrades Rogers Communications. Okay, right as the headline comes across, the band starts playing in the trading floor. Okay, and Don, I won't dox him, but you can see who the CEO of TD Securities was at the time, is standing there and he's like playing on the band. And I turn around, I go, Don, his last name was Wright. Don Wright, who the fuck are these guys? Jesus Christ. And then my trading partner looks at me and he goes, everyone goes quiet because I used the Lord's name in vain. I didn't know they were the Salvation. Nobody told me they were a religious organization. Don Wright goes like, Foss, I'm going to fire your ass on Monday morning. And I'm just like trying to react to a headline and I can't get on the phone to talk to anybody because the Salvation Army band is playing right next to my phone, So anyway, Don Wright and I worked it out. He didn't fire me. And anyway, that's the sort of thing. Friday afternoon, you think everything's going to be fine. And then a rating agency downgrades your largest position in your trading book. I owned hundreds of millions of dollars.
The stress of that to handle that year after year is just...
Yeah, well, that's why. So I've mentioned I've had some time.
Yeah, you could see it. It's just a pressure.
Yeah. But you learn to react pretty quickly. You also learn to have release valves. And you try not to get too far over your skis. You realize your best trade is a sale. If you are in a position or an unwind, you don't try and hedge and wedge yourself. Just get out of the trade you're in rather than saying, okay, I'm long this stock, or bond, I'm going to sell another bond, short sell another bond because they're in the same industry and I'm going to try and hedge it that way. No, the best thing you can do is find a buyer for your position. Even if it's down a meaningful amount, just hit the bid and then move on. And it's just how you survive. So you guys have heard me say this. All I bring to the table is 35 years of mistakes. Okay. And it's how you respond to your mistakes that allow you to survive, not how you respond to your victory.
Okay, so the inflation number in the U.S. just came out. What do you think people are making mistakes on that?
Well, look,
that point?
inflation compounds. If you're celebrating a 5% inflation or a 4.9% inflation rate after it was at 8% last year, what's 5% on top of 8%? It's more than 13%, you knuckleheads. Can you just please understand how mathematics works? and like, I'm sick to my stomach about these, math tards out there and people that'll get snowed. Even Biden has no clue how to do math. Okay, I'm 100% convinced of that because we have an idiot prime minister in Canada who admits he's scared of math as well. Well, you should not be the CEO of a country if you're scared of mathematics. Well, that's what we got in Canada.
Do you think over the next 6 months we see the official inflation rate come down to the point where it surprises people?
Maybe, but it's too late because it's already inflated at 9% plus 5% plus 4% plus 3% plus 2%. Over that period of time, you're offside easily 25% compounded. Guys, that's what people
they don't get, that it's compounded.
Yes.
They don't get that the 4 or 5% is on top of the 8%.
Correct.
They don't see that, unfortunately. It's not like prices are going down. It's just, a slowdown of the increase, which is insane. I'm just wondering if inflation comes down enough that it changes the expected policy, because a lot of people are telling
you're overthinking it. You're just overthinking. It's too late already. People, I
guess that's what I think, that it is too late. I'm just trying to poke holes in my own thinking.
Okay, you always got to question yourself, but look, all paths lead to Bitcoin. Look, there's a lot of positive things that come out of this, and the most positive thing is the following. Thank God that there was a person or group called Satoshi that developed this beautiful technology and store value over 14 years ago during the last financial crisis that puts us in a better position as a group of investors and savers and parents to survive this one.
You know how you say we're not ready for a financial crisis and Bitcoin's not ready? I guess Greg, the only kind of thinking I have on that is like, it might not matter. They're like, there could.
100%.
You and I both know there could be a crisis that it doesn't matter who's ready.
Well, that being said, look, yes, it is ready. Bitcoin's ready. I'm not sure the world is ready.
Yeah. That's a good way to say it.
Let's be
That's
careful.
A good way to say
okay,
it.
Bitcoin is 100% ready. The world is not.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. All right. I know, Nick, I don't know if you had anything else for Greg. I want to make sure he's on time.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I'm just looking at the timer. It's like 41 minutes. If we wrap this up by the 50-minute mark, that would be perfect. Just because people like, here's what I love, that people actually care what I have to say. Thank you for caring what I have to say.
Well, I think you speak very bluntly about things that people don't speak bluntly about. Most financial people will kind of dance around inflation stuff, and it's all bullshit. It frustrates me. And what I appreciate about you is how direct you are on stuff. It's very clear for people.
Okay.
My biggest thing going forward, I know you'll say I'm overthinking it. It's just I'm kind of we're tied into the real estate market.
No,
I'm always looking at interest rates.
Did you see Adam Back's response to my inflation compounds today?
No, I didn't.
Well, look it up. It'll give you comfort. He promoted real estate.
Why? What did he say?
You read the tweet. He basically said, though, that's why I'm recommending people buy real estate as well as Bitcoin.
It's weird. It's kind of like this weird dance you do. Like, I just feel like somebody at that Bitcoin meetup walked out of the office here and said, hey, it's a nice fiat machine that you have here. And they meant it as a nice way. They weren't trying to get them. And I'm like, that's exactly kind of what it is here. Right. I just wonder, I've heard you say it recently. I've heard someone like Jeff Booth say it recently as well, as like, when these governments are just pushed to the max, how aggressively do they come after all asset holders?
Okay, true. It could be true, and you can't move your real estate like you want it to, but understand that there's still enough freedom-loving people in the world that will rise up against that. I really, honest to God, you push the USA too far, the people who value the right to defend their property, there will be an insurrection. Guys, and half of here's an interesting. The Navy SEALs, probably some of the toughest warriors in the world, correct? And best trained. I know some people on the inside who say, 90% of them are willing to defect and
to protect
the country in the way they understand it, not the way some of the political leaders understand.
That's just crazy shit. That's the kind of shit I would hear in other countries, not about the U.S. But I mean, that is normal that humans would react that way.
What is a Navy SEAL? I don't know because I'm not one, but I can imagine it's somebody who has tremendous pride in their country and wants to defend freedom and property for the world. Now, sometimes they're put into missions that, you know, you could question what was the true mission behind that. But that doesn't matter as an individual. What are they? And then if they're pushed too far because of things like, I'll throw this out, because you had to get vaxxed in order to be a Navy SEAL, okay? Or you had to be acceptive of some of the woke-tard shit that they want to bring into the military. If you don't agree with that, but you're still one of the most highly trained fighting machines ever to be known, well, if they go and form their own groups, I'll just say that.
Can you imagine?
Yeah. I don't want it necessarily to happen. But
that's something I don't want to imagine.
Well, look, but
they already exist all over the world, right?
Yeah.
You see it everywhere.
Yeah,
you see it everywhere. Probably in the Soviet bloc, you saw it more than anything. Mm-hmm. It's what caused the Soviet bloc to fragment more than anything, too, right? Look, I'm not a huge fan of violence, but there are times when you have to stand up and fight.
You know, we're the person we bought our condo off of in Croatia was in the war there in the 90s, and this guy was 21. He led a troop of 19-year-olds that did counterintelligence movements. They would try to go behind enemy lines. This is in the 90s. This is not that long ago. Yep. You meet these people, and you see how proud they are to kind of defend the principles that they live by, and you can see what they do. You can also see mentally what it does to them.
Oh, look.
Like it tears them apart, Greg. Like what they go through.
My dad,
but see people in a country like that, like our cousin was a bus driver there, still just retiring from being a bus driver. He immediately went into the army and drove the army trucks to get the troops to different places.
Right.
We know guys at the start of that war that stood on mountaintops in that area of the world. They had one gun between 20 of them that they had to share, and they were facing tanks coming at them. But they were willing to stand out there with one gun.
No, I get it.
To talk to these guys and to see what they were doing. So you can easily see what would happen in a place like America when people feel like their principles are being challenged and what they stand for, and if they're trained, what they're going to do. I know these aren't pleasant conversations, but you see it around the world. Like, this is how people react.
Well, I just go back to my granddad who fought in both world wars, and I think I've told you guys this on your podcast, that he was awarded the Order of the British Empire, right? One of the highest medals of honor for bravery. And you know, I know there's some dark things he never talked about with his kids, but one of the things he did instill in us kids was stand up for what you believe in. Don't understand the commitment he made to defend freedom, and please defend that honor. You know what I mean? Like, he's a young kid. He's you know, flying over Italy at age 21. His life can end any day. And, you know, I've told you those stories. It's not easy. And yet everyone takes freedom for granted. Freedom is not free. And we need to understand that there's been tremendous sacrifices in the world on behalf of people who are trying to defend freedom. Then you could say, okay, is the USA overreaching and trying to suppress? Yes, there's potential of that. I don't want to bring it up, but I do believe, dovetailing this nicely with Jason Lowry's research, Bitcoin could actually stop wars, okay? And that's a beautiful thing too, because nobody needs wars. Nobody.
I want to switch topics just a little bit here. Just because it's hit the you know, the Bitcoin world a little bit, what's your take on some of the, you know, mempool stuff with the ordinals and transaction fees?
I'm not smart enough to tell you, but Saylor thinks it's a good thing. Other people that I love, Wicked Smart Bitcoin, thinks it's a bad thing, but that it'll play out because these meme tards or peppy dudes or whatever, they're spending their own money, and eventually that'll run out. Like, anybody who does an economic calculation will say, well, look, you want to blow all your money, we'll take your money, and then when your money's gone, the problem's gone. And who gets the money in the short term? The Bitcoin miners, which makes our system more secure and more robust.
That's how I feel about it at this point.
No, but there's more there to it too. When you block you get all these BSV guys and Bitcoin Cash guys saying, oh, you see, Bitcoin doesn't work. You can jam up the mempool. Okay. I promise you, Bitcoin will be stronger because of this. And then you get Udiots out there. That's Udi Wertheimer. I call them Udiots. Okay, like he's proud to bring Bitcoin down. He's just he's a narcissist and a failure. So
and I pay no attention to people like that.
Unfortunately, he has a following, and so you just have to understand that this makes Bitcoin stronger over time, and I believe we'll get through it. I'll say it this way. I'm not gonna store value on the most secure blockchain in the world because the fees are too high. I don't think so. Okay.
Where do you think you'll be living? Is Canada going to be a home for you 10 years from now, or do you think you'll be spending more time?
Not likely. Yeah, I think I'll be in the United States.
You'll think it'll be the U.S. And why the U.S.?
Basically, because I have two homes there, so it's
easy.
It's easier. I hope the U.S. will be inviting of me. I'll probably have to start with a work visa and then work myself up. But if not, then maybe, who knows, El Salvador. It'll be tough to get my wife to move to El Salvador, but Florida's is a beautiful place.
She didn't go on that trip with you to El Salvador?
No, the only place she's come. And she is going down for Natalie Brunel's Women in Bitcoin.
That's right. You said
lunch
that. You didn't hear this. Yeah,
at the Miami Bitcoin conference. So in a week, so we're Wednesday. So next Thursday, 8 days from now, Natalie is doing a Women in Bitcoin lunch, which is fantastic because the women in Bitcoin need more. First of all, they're fantastic, but they also need to get more exposure. And not that my wife and daughter are going to do anything to increase the exposure. I just hope they relish the experience. So they're coming down for that. They're not even going to the conference. How did that question come up?
Just where are you going to live?
My wife, the only conference my wife came to was...
Go ahead.
It's all good. Yeah, we're good.
We're good?
Yeah. The only conference my wife came to was the Edinburgh conference in Scotland.
Yeah.
That was amazing. All right. And she had
our mom's from just south of there. We've never been. Yeah. Embarrassing.
I'll tell you, it was amazing. I'd go back in a heartbeat. The guys over there did an amazing job. So shout out to Jordan and Jim. They're doing their best. And, we were criticized, Jeff Booth and I were criticized because, those guys were shitcoiners before, but they promised they'd only be Bitcoin. And this was an amazing Bitcoin conference. Bitcoin only, far more Bitcoin than the Bitcoin conference in Miami that does have inklings of shitcoin. But here's what I do know as well. I met Bitcoin Ollie. Do you guys know who Bitcoin
why do I know Bitcoin Ollie?
Well, I said she. Without doxing her anymore, Bitcoin Ollie is not who you think Bitcoin Ollie is. And I'll leave it at that. And I texted, I DM'd with, again, her. I DM'd with Bitcoin Ollie today. And I said, please, Bitcoin Ollie, when you are ready to be doxed, let me be the person that does it. Okay.
By the smile on your face, I can't wait.
You have no idea how cool this is going to be when this happens.
Really?
Yeah. It's not that, again, she is anybody famous. It's just she's a beautiful person and doing some amazing work, but she chooses not to come.
And you're at the Canadian Bitcoin conference.
Yeah, you guys too. Yeah.
How's your family? You're traveling a lot on behalf of Bitcoin. Like you're kind of serving people by spreading this message. How's your family handling all this time? They just think this is...
Sometimes it's good, right? My wife gets rid of me. So,
but
I'm kidding.
But I also feel like it's found you a purpose.
Look, I was passionate. So I talked to one of my good friends yesterday who was one of my first clients as a high yield bond trader. He was the first Canadian high yield bond account in Canada. His name is Doug Knight from Dean's Knight Capital Management out in Vancouver. We just chatted yesterday. He goes, I saw your Kitco News.
That's right. I can't believe you're on Kitco.
Yeah. And he goes, I loved it. He goes, you talk about Bitcoin like you used to talk about high yield bonds. He goes, your passion has brought you back. And I said, thank you, Dougie. And he's just a solid man who actually has invested in Bitcoin, and we just trade war stories. So yeah, just talked with Dougie yesterday.
How was the bailout handled for Credit Suisse? Weren't the
bondholders got smoked.
Yeah,
it was just.
So what's your take on that? Because that goes against some of your thinking.
Well, not just against. It's just like if you're an AT1, which stands for alternative tier 1 capital holder in the form of bonds, you better get rewarded for the risk, because the risk can bite you real quick. And that was just a orchestrated fleecing of the bondholders so that they could force this merger through, because the guys that they needed to convince owned the equity. They were the shareholders, the senior management of Credit Suisse. We have to leave you with some residual value in your equity, so we'll just write off these bonds.
You know what freaked me out the most, and so I just want your take on this. In the UK gilt market, when it went kind of crazy in the last fall, there was a moment, there was like a 24-hour window where it was like Blackstone or BlackRock, whoever was managing some of that stuff, said, we are going to sell everyone to cash, like we're going to sell everything to cash unless the Bank of England comes and steps in here and provides some liquidity.
Well, that's hilarious. We're going to sell everyone to cash.
Yeah, that's why I think it's hilarious.
No, it's not even funny. There was no bid. Sad. No, it's not. You can't sell if no one is a buyer.
This is what freaks me out about people who have some of the...
Stop. Okay? It's people who don't understand how markets work. And guess who blinked? The Bank of England. Good work. They did not have to.
Yeah, okay. I see.
They folded like a cheap tent, okay?
But I think we'll continue to see them fold.
Okay, good. That means QE infinity. That means Bitcoin. I'm done here. Yeah. I'm done here. I got to go anyway.
Foss, thank you. Always a pleasure.
All right,
Love
boys.
it, man. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you, man. Thank you.
Bye.
Hey, thanks for tuning in. You can find every new episode of the Your Life, Your Term show on all the major streaming platforms. So Spotify, iTunes, Google Play. And if you'd like to get free copies of some of the books that we've put together, like these right here, or some of the reports that we've put together, like these right here, you can find all of those at www.rockstarinnercircle.com. That's www.rockstarinnercircle.com. That's it for now. Until next time, your life, your terms.